As she said, I'm a state Republican executive committee man in Senate District 4. I was in 2018 to 2020 until I became the Sergeant at Arms under Alan West. And then I'm back again, was nominated and elected unanimously by the party to come back in just for where we're sitting at. There's your politics, and I'll leave it aside now. Texas is where I grew up, it's where I was born. I was born in St. Luke's Hospital back in 1972 in Harris County in Houston. I remember when Highway 59 was a two-lane in, two-lane out in the Sugar Land area, and there were cane fields everywhere. I actually remember most of Texas. As a kid, my dad was with the Texas Forestry Service. He was a fire marshal, and he helped to train fire departments, volunteer and paid all throughout the state. We worked on a lot of arson cases when I was a kid. He was an investigator that would go into Mexico across from Eagle Pass to Piedras Negras, as well as Del Rio. So at one point in my life, since I'm the number 2, being his namesake was kind of a curse because I always got in trouble and could never do anything fun, although I made my life tons of fun. Got out of high school, U.S. Army, became a firefighter after that, police officer, and a medic, paramedic, critical care, and an instructor. Got to travel the nation. 9/11 happened. The time 9/11 happened, I was actually a missionary in the Dominican Republic, a group called Young Life, and some of y'all heard of younglife.org. It's been around since the 1950s, and it was a non-denominational organization that brought kids to Christ from the street. So, growing up Southern Baptist, that's not always our thing, but we were very prominent in some of the high schools in Sugar Land and Fort Bend County area. Matter of fact, Beyonce Knowles came to our group a couple times back before she became the booty shaker for the Super Bowl lady. We had a lot of high-priced people that came through in some of those areas, and then I went down to the Dominican Republic and built a youth camp down there for the kids down there. So I was present as an Army soldier whenever the Haitian earthquake happened. And at that time we had a Secretary of State, y'all may remember her, Hillary Clinton. Yeah. So funny how I mentioned those names and trafficking at the same time. What you're seeing now happen on our border is a travesty because right now we're the producers of the Johns who order the sex slave trade, the rape slave trade. Do not call it human trafficking. These children, men and women, and elderly are being enticed by our State Department, by organizations that are funded by our State Department in foreign countries. Your tax dollars is paying for this. I had the unfortunate ability to be in Guatemala back in 2017, I believe it was in March. There was not really an orphanage, it's more of a disciplinary, it was a state-sponsored school where the parents would drop their kids off all the way up into their teen years because they were bad. The girls in that school were being pimped out by the police. And there was an incident that happened where the girls got tired, and this was a functioning program where it was all ages, all teenage children to teenage ages. But a group of girls that were really most specifically tired set their mattresses on fire so that they would be rescued. The police locked the doors and watched 41 of those girls die. I was entered into the equation whenever I was asked to help as a critical care paramedic, no longer certified anymore, to get one to Galveston to our burn hospital there. 6 of them or 7 of them came to the U.S. I only know about the one that came to Galveston. Physically, her leg was burned off. As a combat medic in the United States Army is what I did from 2002 to 2014. Got to go to some of the coolest places, meet some of the craziest people. We try not to shoot too many of them. But at the same time, trafficking where the rape and labor slave trade was very prominent while George W. Bush was president, Barack Obama was president, and it's exacerbated under President Trump. Not due to him, but due to the policies that we could not get passed when we had a Republican majority in the first part of his presidency, which also yielded in a whole bunch of other problems. The elections, things like that, these are all the way we break down and tear down society. We demoralize people. The rape slave trade specifically is designed as a money-making tool. These are not children in the cartel's eyes. These are not children in the eyes of even some of our government officials, some of our charities that are supposed to be helping these folks out. These people, these children, women, some men, they're products. That's what they're seen as. Think about going home. I have three sons of my own. I actually physically lost a set of twins when I was in the Army in 2007. I delivered the first of two twins, and they were in the process of dying, and we knew that. And that was something I was unfortunately too used to, because being an Army medic, especially in special operations, we would be the clinic, we would be the hands and feet of villages. My job was to work with veterinarians to help get animals going, while I was basically the doc to get the village going. Nation building, hearts and minds. We would win their trust, and we could help spread what I like to call a constitutional republic, because I've always worked with the Constitution in other countries. I've been in 3 civil wars. We're in one right now. The travesty of the labor and rape slave trade is that those people, God's creation, is a product to the other folks out there, whether they're meaning good or they're meaning bad. Catholic Charities makes money off of this daily. Our government spends your money off of this daily. We pay for corruption in other countries, which pays for the movement, the migration of people to illegally enter our country, while they're on the course of trying to make their life better. And not all of them are voluntarily here. Some of them are forced. They are already bought and purchased in Virginia. They are already bought and purchased in Maine. They are already bought and purchased in East Texas, and Houston, Oklahoma, Minnesota. They're not just coming in from the southern border. They're coming into our airports. They're coming in on boat. They're coming in through the northern border. This is a daily occurrence. And unfortunately for those of you that live around here, you've seen the uptake of the Dukes of Hazzard, where it's car chases multiple times a day. Sheriff Coe, I never would have known who he was had he not come to Montgomery County and talked about his problem. Our state government, our police officers, our federal officers, their hands are tied by policy. When I raised my right hand for the Constitution, to defend the Constitution, as a United States Army soldier, twice, as a police officer, I even did it as a firefighter. That was just a process that my department did at the time. The department I was a captain on a rescue truck for, we had what you're seeing now in Houston years ago, stash houses. I was called to a man possibly having a heart attack in the street while we were there tending to him. We looked up and there were 70 people inside of a house. When I say a house, these two trusses right here in this wall, that house would fit just in this one area right here. That's how small that house was. That was in Harris County, Northeast Harris County. We watched the rape slave trade in Houston with the Super Bowl while I was on active military duty looking for nuclear weapons. that obviously didn't come. That was great, but we were there for preventative measures. Houston was my home. I knew it very well. I still know it very well. I've been in oil and gas since I got out of the military. And one thing the oil and gas producers hired me for was what we call risk mitigation and safety. I was hired to make sure that nobody gets hurt on these ranches that we're on or by the oil lines that we're on. And as I worked out there to protect the men and women that are bringing us oil and gas, especially along the border from New Mexico down to Corpus Christi, so think about that. The cartels were heavily working on our oil lines. Oil field workers were getting murdered, they were getting kidnapped, or they were getting beat up, and their vehicles were being stolen so they could be driven further inland. No one's going to report it whenever a gauger's out there in the oil field at 2 o'clock in the morning and then a bunch of illegals overtake it. I had the unfortunate story hit Breitbart back in 2018. There was a story that was done on me whenever I found a 7-year-old girl who had been raped by about 27 men. We were able to fly her to Brooke Army Medical Center, and where she is now, I can't tell you. What country she was from, can't tell you that either. About 7 years old. I'm pretty good with age. They said it was about 27 men because that's how many they caught a little further, about 13 hours walk away, down south of Hebronville. So for those of you in the area, that's also happening here. The cartels are very heavy in Zapata and Starr County, where we have very limited, well, now the resources are coming. But for the past 10 years, we've had politicians at the state and federal level talk about this. We've got to designate the cartels as terrorist organizations. We've had people saying that since 2010. Same talking points. They're running for re-election, still talking about it now. At some point, you got to stop talking and you got to do. That 7-year-old girl, I was told later by the judge that took possession of her, custody, that she was doing well about 4 months later. But think about that. At 7 years old, the one thing that God designed for her to have and give to the man that was supposed to spend the rest of his life with her, and she no longer can have children. The abortion industry is fueled by the rape slave trade. Girl gets pregnant, woman gets pregnant, whatever. Take them down, get it pulled out, keep them on the bin for money. $650,000 a year is what a child brings in until we're done with them. Think of that. They're discarded. This happens in every major city in America. Mexico, South America. 2018, we also had 5 Ukrainian girls come across the border right before election night. The vehicle that they were driving, they spoke English. The vehicle they were driving, attempting to get into to drive on a private ranch down south of Hebronville, about 20 miles in from the border. It had a GPS in it. They could speak English. You knew they were from Russia or the Ukraine. They had that thing going. The 13-year-old looked like a 21-year-old model. Her virginity was going for $10,000 that night. We caught her about 5:30, 6 p.m. as her and the other 4 girls were getting into the vehicle. There was a 19 and a 21-year-old with her. They were all dressed up to the hilt. They were somebody's prize. After the DPS got there, we got to talking to these girls. The story of how they got to Venezuela by aircraft and then by boat. I want to say Veracruz, but that may just because it's got to be in it, but it's somewhere on the Mexican coast. That one girl's virginity was kept intact. But I need you to think about this. Everything else on her body was sold all along the way. That was her story. We're importing rape and slave trade into this country by the minute. And where we're not bringing in a rape-slave trade, the family units are being brought in, false family units. And those people that are in possession of children that by DNA no longer match theirs, those people are allowed into the country, even though it's a felony to kidnap a child, because that's exactly what that is, whether they meant to or not. Our law enforcement's being forced into dealing with this by policies. You guys finally saw something happen on, I think, Twitter. It was released out of Laredo a couple weeks back with Mayorkas and Raul Ortiz. And Ortiz was from this area as a border patrol chief. They were finally confronted by their own that said, bad things happen when good men do nothing. And these men that raised their right hand finally called out their management, and it made worldwide news. We need to be the voice for our law enforcement when they no longer have their voice. There is no Black Lives Matter. Biden was correct whenever he said that was all a myth, a movement, or whatever. That's exactly what that is. That's an ideology that's implanted to change the freedoms and the liberties of America, of getting here properly. Trauma to triumph. There's not enough going on right now. There's not enough of these rehabilitation areas because the need, the demand is outweighed by what is out there now. So I know we're towards the end of the bidding, but this is something that you guys need to take out to your friends, pass through your social media. Rehabilitation of what we're seeing coming across while we're trying to defend our borders. Because what is happening is a military action. It is not an immigration problem. What we have is a voting problem. We've brought the wrong people into Congress that haven't done what's on the books for over a century. What you're seeing happening down here, over 100 years ago, General Blackjack Pershing was dispatched by the United States president at that time. And he took care of the problem then. The 20s and 30s in South Texas, in San Diego, in Freer, Duval County, Laredo, what you're seeing now was happening over 100 years ago and 90 years ago. History is just repeating itself. Back then it was Pancho Villa, now it's the cartels. The cartels, they have a hold on their government. Mexico is a narco-terrorist state. Mexico is also still our #1 trading partner. When Texas rises up, when these rehabilitation ranches start undoing the trauma that's been created, we're going to be able to help Mexico get back on their feet because they've never been on their feet. If they haven't been a narco-terrorist state, they've been a dictatorship. We have countries to the south of there where their leaders are coming and saying, hey, 2018, a friend of mine running for president of Guatemala, and she's right back on the ticket again. She came up here saying, we need help for our country. Bad things are coming. She met with my congressman. She met with my state senator. She met with a U.S. senator. We did nothing. Our elected officials did nothing. And those are just the Republicans. The Democrats are exploiting this. Trauma to triumph. These ranches, this ranch, it's just one. There are people across the nation that are trying to do exactly this here. And you're impacting this much. But where Monica's impacting this much, so is somebody else, and it builds. It starts with one. And if each one of you in this room could get serious and have a conversation with 10 of your friends, and you empower them to meet up with 10 of their other friends, think of the invasion of the millions of people that have come across that border. We could do the same with goodwill. A lot less money with a sincere conversation. The trauma of these victims doesn't go away. I have never been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and they dropped the disorder, but that's exactly what it is. There's no polite way to talk about the memories I have. I don't have bad dreams. I remember people dying, soldiers. I remember bombs going off and 4-year-olds in different countries that carried suicide vests in the markets. That was my job. We're walking that into our country right now. The smells of that 7-year-old girl, I wake up to that at 3 o'clock in the morning. I have a 6-year-old son, an 11-year-old son, and my 16-year-old just started driving. He has a license. First thing I did when he got his driver's license is I gave him a standard. I said, here's a stick. Now you're gonna learn the hard way. I get to go from being a father to 2 o'clock in the morning, remembering the tragedies in other countries. I don't have to go talk to a doctor. I'm not a part of the VA. I refuse that part of socialized medicine run by the government. Because there's people like Monica that'll talk to me for free. There's people like Monica that need your money to help these folks out, whether they're coming from illegally or they're a kid that grew up in CPS. What people don't realize, CPS daily, just in Texas by itself, there's 150 kids that get lost into the system every single day. Of that, half are recovered. The other half, we don't know where they're at. They make their ways as runaways to other states. Some of them are locked in hotel rooms. Who knows when the Super Bowl is happening? Is that tomorrow? Super Bowl is the biggest party for the worst perverts in the world. And wherever the Super Bowl is happening, that's where it's going to be. Go on your social media feed. Put in trafficking. Look at Tim Ballard, Operation Underground Railroad Rescue. Those guys, I've been a fan of Tim Ballard since he left the DHS. Sponsored a couple of his events in Houston. Rented a theater, let people watch his movie. Those people don't talk to me anymore. They can't believe that I would have a film premiere in an AMC theater or an Edwards 24, whatever it was, with 400 or 500 people, and watch a movie about child sex trafficking through the world. That was in 2016 or 2017 I did that. Now my friends are starting to talk to me again. Reluctantly, they're embarrassed that we let this go on for so long and they could have helped. Trauma to Triumph is something that is definitely needed, like I said, on a larger scale. There's people in other states with the same type of ideas. We need to link those folks together. Because this generation of trauma, that if we don't create triumph out of it, these are going to be our voters and our slaves when we get old. I turn 50 at the end of next month. I never thought in a million years I would be talking about the horrors of sex, slave, rape, trafficked children and women. Drove like a bat out of hell up this ranch road to get here. Actually, I went on a different ranch by accident because the gate was open on that guy's ranch. Got about 3 miles in and said, oops, let me turn around. During the day, This place is God's country. I've taken pipelines through here. Matter of fact, the Epic pipeline, just this side of Rackettville, or wherever I'm at. I don't know which direction is which right now. But I've driven the backcountry from New Mexico to Corpus Christi, in between all the roads. I've been through some real hostile area, rocks and such. I've seen some of the most majestic deer and game animals ever, wild game animals ever. This is what I'm supposed to be enjoying going into my 50th year. Not this conversation here. My wife's a school teacher in an elementary school. It's a Title I school. Because half the kids that are in that school are probably illegal aliens or a product thereof. But either way, those kids, once they're on our soil, they're our responsibility. That's our duty from God. You guys think hard. While we get to enjoy this setting here, the purpose is serious. There are good men out there that are doing ungodly things because we depended upon our politicians too much. Now is the time for us to take our country back, take these hearts and minds back that have been severed by this trauma, and stop creating rehabilitation ranches and clinics. Start creating capitalists, start creating mothers, fathers, businessmen, the proper representatives that go to the Capitol to do the right thing, people that lead our churches. I'm friends with 67 different countries. I know people in European Parliament. Sometimes I'm a little scary with people. I've got friends in South America and Central America that are in government. Daily they call. Weekly they call, and sometimes monthly. But we can make a difference. Because one of these kids here that gets out of this, one of these mothers, one of these sons, is going to grow up to be an appreciative leader that's going to make sure that everyone in his circle or her circle is taken care of. And that's going to start here with Trauma Triumph. So I ask that you dig deep. The online auction, pass that around. Get on your social media feed or text people and say, hey, let's make this a thing. There's more Monicas out there that need to see this successful model, because this is happening in California, in Arizona, in Utah, in Nevada, and in 50 other states, or if you're Barack Obama, 57. But it's happening in countries throughout the world. I have friends in Spain doing the same thing. I have friends in Honduras. So I want to thank you guys, one, for listening, taking a mindful ear. I apologize for being late. Traffic was a killer in Austin and San Antonio. But I travel Texas about 11 times a year, the whole entire state. And I don't do it for fun. When you're looking at your elections, really pick out the person. And as a Republican, it'll surprise you that I say this. Look into the hearts of who you're dealing with. I have a lot of Democrat sheriffs that are friends, and they're doing way more than any Republican legislator that I know of right now. I have Republican sheriffs that are coming over here. Their deputies are coming over here. We need to get the state out of here. Nothing against the DPS. This county, it needs the state's help to raise its own. The next county over, Maverick, Valverde, they need help raising their own. Swing around over to Alpine, Hudspeth, Culberson. They need the proper monies allocated from our state budget to make their national, international problems go away with local solutions. We need to get out of the White House and out of Austin, and we need to start on a grassroots level at every single county. We need to lead by principle. This nation was built on God, period, and a Constitution. Those are the only two books you need to look at. Thank you guys very much.